Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing well. Students, today we'll be talking about a very interesting story. Now this story is about the grey moth and black moth. Now as the name suggests, the grey moth is grey in color and it is called as Biston betularia. Black moth is black in color and it is called as Biston carbonaria. Now in England, before Industrial Revolution, the bark of the trees were covered with grey lichens. Now students, lichens are the symbiotic association between say algae and fungi. Algae gives food to the fungi, whereas fungi protects algae from external factors. Now in biology, we call this as symbiosis, which means living together for benefit of each other. Now look at the left part of the diagram. Now before Industrial Revolution, the grey moth was not visible in the background of say grey lichens. Therefore, predators such as birds could not identify this grey moth. Therefore, the population of grey moth before Industrial Revolution was very high as compared to black moth. Now after Industrial Revolution, the black soot which was coming out of the chimneys of the industries started settling on the bark of the trees. Now students, lichens are also a good indicator of say pollution. So as the soot of the chimneys started accumulating on the bark of the trees started becoming black, and even that led to the destruction of lichens which were present on the branches of the trees. Now in the black background, the grey was visible versus the black moth. Now in this situation, the birds started easily finding the grey moth versus black moth. That led to the substantial increase in number of black moth and decrease in number of say grey moth. So students, here the point which is to be noted is that before Industrial Revolution, it is the nature who selected grey moth versus black moth, and it is the nature only who selected black moth versus grey moth. Now this is a good example of Industrial Revolution, and it is the nature who is selecting the organisms who are best suited for the environment. So students, today we will be talking about say natural selection theory, which was given by Charles Darwin along with Alfred Russel Wallace. Students, before Darwin proposed his natural selection theory, there was a tremendous impact of special creation in the mind of the people. Now we know that special creation theory talks about the creation of this earth organisms by God. Now it says that earth evolved around say 4,000 years back. All organisms we see today were created as such, and the third important aspect is the diversity was always same since creation, and it will be the same in the future. Now these were the highlights of say special creation theory. Now we know that Charles Darwin was very much interested in nature, diversity and ideas of evolution. So he got a chance to study all these organisms, the nature and diversity, and to understand evolution during his journey of HMS Beagle between 1831 to 1836 for 5 years. Now during this journey he collected several plants, animals and even fossils. He kept very careful record of all these things. Now when he reached Galapagos Island, he surprised to see the different finches with different types of beaks and even the turtles. Now after learning, researching on the material collected by him for several years, he formulated the theory of evolution. Now during the same period, Alfred Russel Wallace also concluded same thing. So together with Alfred Russel Wallace, Charles Darwin proposed natural selection theory. So in today's discussion, we'll talk about the same. Students, these are the various features of Darwin's selection theory. Now in coming part of this video, we'll talk about all these features in great detail, one by one. Students, this is the first feature of Darwin's theory, which is called as overproduction or prodigality of nature. Now every species try to produce more number of offsprings for better survival. Now if this population is not controlled or not checked, then entire earth will get filled with only same type of organism. But the population size of the organisms remain constant for many reasons. Now Darwin gave certain mathematical example to understand this concept. Now he gave example of salmon. Now salmon fish produces say around 28 lakhs of eggs in one breeding season. Now suppose if all the eggs are fertilized and if all of them forms the new fish, then in few years the entire sea will get filled with only salmon fishes. Now salmon fish in Marathi is called as ravas. Now second example he gave is about say elephant. Now we know that elephant is very slow breeding animal. Its gestation period is almost 22 to 23 months. Now this one pair of say elephant in a period of say 750 years can give rise to say 19 millions of say elephants if the population is unchecked. But we all know that this overproduction doesn't really occur because of several factors. We'll see it, what are the reasons one by one. Now Darwin said that population is growing geometrically, whereas the food production is growing arithmetically. Geometric means like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. The ratio between the two successive numbers is same. Arithmetic means the difference between the two successive numbers is same. So the food production is growing very slowly as compared to the population. Now here, as the food and space is limited, there is struggle for existence between the organisms for food, shelter and mate. Now these struggles can be divided into say three types. Now first type is say intra-specific struggle. Now what is the meaning of intra-specific struggle is the two organisms of same species are fighting for say food, shelter and mate. So here the two dogs can be fighting for say food, mate or shelter. Now inter-specific struggle means the two organisms of different species are fighting for say food and shelter, and all these organisms will fight with the nature for say bad environmental condition. So that is what called as extra specific or environmental struggle. So students, these are three different types of struggle which will lead to say competition between all the organisms on the earth. Now what Darwin said is that variations are the tools for evolution. Now in one of the previous chapter, that is during Mendelian genetics, we talked about various reasons for variation. As you know, like meiosis, during the meiosis there is one phase called as what say prophase 1, where the recombination of gene occurs. We call it as a crossing over. So those who are interested in watching that video, you can see in the I section. Now these variations are highly essential for evolution. Now these variations are the differences among the individuals which can take place at morphological, physiological, nutritional, habitat and behavioral level. Now these variations can be useful or harmful, or even they can be neutral. Now the variations can take place at somatic cells or at germ cells level. Now we know that the variation should occur in germ cells so that they can be transferred to the next generation. Now variations can be continuous or discontinuous. The discontinuous can be say mutations, which are called as say sudden changes in the genetic material, and the variations can also be like meristic variations, such as changes in number of say like changes with respect to number, such as say increase in number of ribs or extra digits. And the variations can be also of a substantive type, that is changes with respect to size, shape. So these are the variations, and Darwin called variations as very important tool for evolution. Now students, we know that the variations are also produced during say fusion of gametes in sexual reproduction. Now students, what Darwin said is that those organisms with useful variations and better adaptations become successful in struggle, and those organisms who survive gets a chance to reproduce and thereby passing the useful variations to the next generation. So nature selects fit organism while the organism with harmful variations are rejected by the nature. Now Darwin called this as natural selection, whereas Herbert Spencer called it as survival of fittest. Now students, as the favorable variations are transferred from generation to generation, the successive generation becomes better adapted to the environment, and gradually these adaptations with few new modifications becomes fixed in the life cycle, and over a period of time it gives rise to the new species. Now here the formation of new species is called as what? Speciation. Now this doesn't occur in few months or years, it occurs in several million years. So try to understand this. So formation of species is called what? Speciation. Now students, these are the three examples of natural selection. That is, the mosquitoes have developed, say, resistant against the pesticide DDT. Second is the giraffe with long neck, and we started our discussion with the same concept, that is industrial melanism. So these are various examples of natural selection. So students, I hope you are clear with the concept of the natural selection theory given by the Darwin as well as Alfred Russel Wallace. So in the next slide we'll talk about what are the limitations of the theory. Students, as we all know that Darwin's theory of natural selection is widely accepted. Moreover, it totally abolished the theory of special creation. But this theory has certain limitation. The first limitation is that it considers natural selection as the sole reason for evolution. But today we know that mutation also play a very important role in evolution. Second aspect is that it talks about, say, variations in somatic cells as well as germ cells. It doesn't really distinguish between, say, inheritable and heritable variations. Now, in order to transfer the variations from one generation to next generation, the variation must occur in germ cells. So this is very important. Third very important aspect is it doesn't have any explanation about, say, vestigial organs, mimicry or connecting link. Now vestigial organs are the organs which are present with us but not functional. Like we have tailbone but we don't have tail. So these are various limitations of Darwin's theory. So students, I hope you are clear with the concept of Darwin's theory of evolution, which was jointly proposed by Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace. At the end, I request you all to like my channel, share it and subscribe it. Thank you for watching this video. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.